Well, happy post-election day. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Hopefully you got some sleep. I got a little bit after a long election season seemingly coming to a close last night. Good morning. You can always call in live and local at 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And obviously, a long night last night. Of course, still looking at numbers across the country. It seems that the U.S. Senate is tied at this moment, 48 for Republicans, 48 for Democrats. Still some races not yet solidified, and that's happening across the country. But it looks like Republicans are on their way to take over the U.S. House. As of right now, the projections have them right around 199 seats to the Democrats' 178 seats. So you'll hear a lot more about that, but Illinois, a different dynamic altogether when it comes to the outcome of the elections, and a lot to get to from all of the different statewide races to the Amendment 1 question that still seems to be unresolved as to what the ultimate outcome is going to be there. Still too early to call for that race. So we'll be looking at that and some of the local races as well. But of course, your phone calls are always encouraged at 217-629-7970. You can email bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media and message me that way. But again, the best way to do it is to call in live and local at 217-629-7970 here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And, you know, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a flavor of what it was like last night with election night coverage. I did attend the Bailey election night watch party at the Crowne Plaza here in Springfield. A lot of media there, a lot of supporters there as well, and people were hanging out, waiting for numbers to come in. The polls closed at 7. But then just a handful of minutes after the polls closed, you had the Associated Press announce the victory for the incumbent Democratic governor, J.B. Pritzker. And even others in the press row were kind of scratching our heads like, what? Because I had, several large county clerk election results websites up while I was trying to get a little bit of an early indication as to, well, who's leading where. So I had, for instance, Cook County's election results website up. I had Chicago's Board of Elections website up. I believe, DuPage County, Lake County, some of these more populous counties across the state. And none of them had posted any election results until probably about 7:30ish or so. We started actually seeing some election results starting to come in. I first noticed Lake County being, at least the ones that I checked, among the earliest, putting up some kind of totals. But that was minutes after the Associated Press called the race for Bailey. And so we'll touch on that here in a moment. But what were the voters thinking heading into the election? And I think this gives you a bit of an interesting barometer of where people were coming from. Earlier in the week, I talked with a Pritzker supporter, Patty Wynn from Taylorville, and she talked about what major issues that she was looking at as she headed to the polls.
Well, first of all, women's rights. It's very important to me that women retain their rights, that they're treated as equal citizens in the state of Illinois. That's probably my main reason for voting.
So women's rights being an issue for that voter. But I talked with Paul Durr at the Bailey campaign event last night for election night before the results were rolling in there. And I asked him a similar question as to what are the major issues. He doesn't see abortion as being the major issue that drove people to the polls.
I don't think that the people feel the same way. I think they're more worried about the safety, the cost of inflation, and the school kids as the future progresses. What are they putting their children in for in the public education system?
So again, you get a little bit of an understanding of where these voters were coming from. So that was a little bit of the sentiment of voters, but then flashing forward to the Associated Press announcing that J.B. Pritzker was the victor in the gubernatorial race. And then you had Juliana Stratton, the lieutenant governor, get up on stage in Chicago and she laid out essentially the beginnings of a victory speech. Here's Juliana Stratton from last night in Chicago.
My name is Juliana Stratton. I use she, her pronouns, and it is an honor and privilege to stand before you tonight, ready to serve another term as your Lieutenant Governor.
So, again, this was after the Associated Press had called it, and I think a few of the other networks had called it, and this was still in the 7 o'clock hour, which a lot of people waiting at the Bailey campaign event, just wanting to see more numbers coming in before they actually saw media outlets starting to declare for one candidate or the other. I talked with Brad Halbrook briefly at the event last night. He was there supporting Bailey, and I asked him about some news networks announcing that Pritzker had won before we even had results coming in. Here's State Representative Brad Halbrook.
Yeah, I think that's always early to do that, especially this year. We've got great turnout in central and southern Illinois. Most of the rest of the state, it's been great weather for Republican turnout. So I think it's early yet to say anything. I think we need to wait till all the votes are counted.
And is that going to be a long night, do you think?
I think it's going to be really close. And close ones might take a while.
So, again, that was before you had the victory speech from the governor and then the concession speech from Senator Bailey, which we will unpack next. We'll hear a good chunk of the governor's victory speech and then Bailey giving his concession speech. Plus, throughout the hour, this hour, we'll hear about the U.S. Senate race. We'll hear about congressional seats and delve into what to expect with Amendment 1. So that's on the way here. Of course, a post-election broadcast with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, where you can tell I'm wearing my glasses, not my contacts. It was a long night last night. Let's just put it that way. My eyes are still kind of... All right, stay tuned. Much more coming up here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. A long night for candidates looking to get elected to office, some of them succeeding, some of them not. But some of the things that we're still holding out to see what ultimately the outcome is going to be is, for instance, Amendment 1. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll also delve into some of the outcomes from congressional races across the state of Illinois. But let's hear from Governor J.B. Pritzker last night, a little bit into his speech, his victory speech. He talked about former challenges and just how society can move forward and advance, saying that he's going to be a happy warrior of sorts. So here's more of what the governor had to say last night.
And to all of you, let me be even clearer. To anyone who thinks that they can come into this state and try to force some right-wing MAGA war on a woman's body, you will never get an inch of Illinois. And finally, here in the land of Lincoln, the home state of Barack Obama, the first state to ratify the 13th and 19th Amendments ending slavery and guaranteeing a woman's right to vote, we will never surrender in the battle against hate. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, we have conquered none of these obscenities. In fact, every effort to call them out has fueled the rise of a new movement devoted to their skillful repackaging, in the hopes that we will be so afraid of being called woke that we will be too exhausted to fight the next resurgence of the world's most persistent and ancient evils. You see, hate is a chronic condition. The patient can get better, but we can never stop being vigilant in preventing its return. Unfortunately, a cancer has spread through one ideological wing of this nation to infect the patient itself. They've had ample opportunity to treat the disease, and they have refused to do so at every turn. The result has been treasonous insurrectionists tearing down the doors of the U.S. Capitol. The maiming of Capitol Police, and an attack on the 82-year-old husband of the Speaker of the House with a hammer in his own home. There's no nice or easy way to say this, but until the Republican Party is ready to expel the extremists in their midst, we need to do it for them at the ballot box. The fight for democracy, the fight for freedom, the fight for liberty, the fight for decency should be peaceful, but not be timid. It needs to be out loud. It should afford no politician a convenient rhetorical hiding place. You don't get to wave a moderate flag from your front porch while you're having a picnic in the backyard with insurrectionists. And don't claim that the Republican Party is being labeled unfairly, because here we are 2 years into cleaning up the wreckage of Donald Trump's presidency, poised to watch this man announce his return to national politics within days. You know why? Because GOP politicians, with the exception of only a few souls, are too cowardly, too simpering to support the best interests of the nation, because they're afraid of being called insulting nicknames by a whiny bully. To the fake patriots and their enablers, you don't love the United States if you're not willing to defend it against a man who would destroy it. Donald Trump is the modern embodiment of tyranny that our founders feared the most. So don't lecture us about norms or typical political practices. Against a party that nominates and endorses anti-Semites and racists and anti-immigrant zealots, appeasement and complacency do not work. I know. My family fled that kind of tyranny, and I helped survivors build a Holocaust museum. You know what works? Winning works.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker, some of his speech last night. He went on for a good 20 or so minutes in his victory speech and seems to really take a hard line against Republicans in general and in particular Donald Trump, former president. And of course, one of the narratives throughout the campaign was if Governor Pritzker wins again, is he going to have an eye on 2024 to make a bid for the White House? So again, it's interesting to hear him focus some of that attention on last night's victory speech on Donald Trump and how he characterized the Republican Party as being, in a way, sycophants of what he called a bully. So that's a bit of what you might hear in the weeks and months and years ahead as yet another election's done. We get ready for the future elections. But coming up next, I do want to air State Senator Darren Bailey's concession speech last night. So stay tuned. That's next here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Back at it. Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And you're welcome to call in live and react to what you're seeing unfold with the elections. Of course, yesterday was the culmination of months and months and months of campaigning, but you can call in and chime in at 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com. So last segment, we heard from Governor J.B. Pritzker with his victory speech, and he gave that. It took about 45 minutes or so for Darren Bailey to get on stage to address the crowd here in Springfield. And watching the crowd all night, watch the TVs that were set up for election results to pour in with national news coverage and so on, which, by the way, I mean, we're looking right now, it's still neck and neck in the U.S. Senate with whether or not Republicans are going to take control of that. And in the U.S. House, it looks like Republicans are going to take control. But a lot of people saying it's not the red wave that was speculated for weeks leading into the election across the country. Illinois, though, very much a Democrat state, as you've been hearing throughout the morning. Democrats got all of the statewide offices No Republicans there. Democrats also maintain their supermajorities in both the House and Senate in the Illinois legislature. So it's obvious that Illinois is in a way a blue oasis of sorts in the Midwest compared to some of the other neighboring states that we have all around us. But we heard from Governor Pritzker really seeming to train his focus on former President Donald Trump, who's expected to announce that he's going to run again for president in 2024. That announcement's expected next week. So we'll see how that unfolds. But you had Pritzker really seeming to lump a bunch of Republicans into a group of what he called were racists, xenophobe, misogynists, or something to that effect. I can't remember all the different descriptors he used for Republicans, but some might pick up on that and think that's not really a unifying message. But when they've got the supermajorities now, what are you going to do about it? Of course, there are always elections, right? Well, we just had one last night. So we heard from the governor. Let's hear from the state senator who was challenging him, Darren Bailey, last night, addressing the crowd, saying that there's still room for a miracle, he said to the crowd last night.
Still room for a miracle until all the votes are counted. But from what we know, tonight didn't turn out the way we wanted. But thanks to God, we still have so many blessings. I want to thank my incredible wife, Cindy, through this journey. Cindy's my high school sweetheart and has been by my side every step of the way, being my strength on the good days and on the hard days. I love you. I love my family who has sacrificed so much while we were out on the campaign trail fighting for the future of this great state that we love. And Stephanie, thank you for joining our team. Isn't she great? Stephanie and Bill have worked so hard all across this state to help us get our shared message out, and I'm very excited about her future and our movement. Thank you to the people of Illinois. Thank you for our amazing team and everyone who worked so hard, everyone who voted, everyone who donated, everyone who prayed to help us in our fight to restore Illinois. Your support has meant the world to me and each and every day, and I thank you for that. Friends, the greatest blessing the past 2 years has been hearing your voices, your struggles, the worries that keep us up at night, listening to you. I've been to every county in this great state. We've listened to the voices of working families, parents, taxpayers, law enforcement, and everyday citizens who have been struggling and who've been forgotten. Voices of different faiths, voices of different ages, and voices of different places. Voices from the farms, voices from the suburbs, voices from Chicago, and absolutely everywhere in between. Those voices don't come from people who look the same, and they sure don't come from people who sound the same. But make no mistake, the things that we want, the things that unite us, they are the same, and they always have been. And that is to provide for our families, to be safe, to live lives of opportunity and of freedom. And friends, I can promise you this. I may not be going to Springfield as your next governor, but I will never stop fighting for you. I will never stop listening to your voices. I can't. My family depends on it. I just spoke to Governor Pritzker and congratulated on his win tonight. The challenges are many, but I'm going to do what I always have done, what Americans always have done. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to go back to work. My priorities will continue to be the things that unite us. Protecting our freedoms, bringing jobs to our state, and safety to our streets. Republicans need to be the loyal opposition in Springfield, loyal to our state, loyal to our country, loyal to our Constitution, but in opposition to the radical policies of the Democrats.
That's right.
Friends, we must work together to find solutions for all the people of Illinois. Illinois can be better. Illinois must be better. Our leaders must be better. And J.B. Pritzker, you need to be better. You need to be better for Illinois. You need to be better for our children. And you need to be better for our grandchildren.
So again, that's State Senator Darren Bailey last night, his speech where he said, that there still could be a miracle. There's room for a miracle. We'll see if that's the case. But looking at some of the totals that are in, about 95% of precincts statewide reporting, and J.B. Pritzker on top with 2,075,440 votes. Darren Bailey got 1.6 million votes. And the Libertarian candidate not getting close to the goal he was looking to get, 5% to make the Libertarian Party a statewide established party. Scott Schluter only getting about 2.8%. Again, 95% of the votes have been counted so far. I'm sure that you still have some outstanding mail-in ballots that have yet to come in. We'll see those numbers develop throughout the day today and throughout the next few days here. But kind of a different tone and tenor from Governor J.B. Pritzker's victory speech and the Republican state senator Darren Bailey's concession speech. As we heard, Pritzker seemed to really rail against broad swaths of people. So as he, when he talks about extremists that have, racist streaks or are misogynists or xenophobes or the various different ways he characterized supporters of Republicans, is he saying that about the 1.6 some odd million people that voted for Darren Bailey? So interesting to see this, of course, now the day after the election as the dust settles in Illinois' elections. And we'll, of course, delve into some of the other races. You had last night Attorney General Kwame Raoul beat out Thomas DeVore in that race. You had the new Secretary of State, Alexi Giannoulias, beat out the Republican challenger Dan Brady. Comptroller Susana Mendoza getting another victory under her belt against Shannon Teresi. Then also you've got Mike Frericks beating out Tom Dimmer last night. So all statewide constitutional offices in the state of Illinois are in Democrats' hands. And the indication is that the Democrats also maintain their supermajorities in both the Senate and the House. And here locally, you have Republican State Representative Sandy Hamilton conceding to State Senator Doris Turner in that district. Last I checked, you also had Sue Shearer ahead of Lisa Smith to be the Democrat taking that seat that encompasses Decatur and parts of Springfield. So those are just some of the races overviewed here. But also you've got the constitutional amendment, all right, the measure that would codify collective bargaining rights in the state constitution. It was leading early in the night last night, and I think at one point it had like 64.8% or something. But now, with about 85% of reporting, the amendment only has 58.7%. And that is not enough to get over that 3/5 threshold of 60% in order for it to be enacted. Now, there's another way that it could possibly be enacted, and that's if the simple majority of all votes cast approve of the amendment. So that includes those who just didn't fill out any circles. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's still too close to call. And you've got people who are on both sides of this not putting out statements yet because, well, quite frankly, it's still too close to call. So whether or not they're going to codify collective bargaining in the Illinois Constitution, again, that dust has not quite settled. Take one call here before the break. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, good morning. You know, if I heard your sound bites right, J.B. Pritzker wants to work with Republicans and expects that Republican voters will expel the extremists in the party. And when I heard Darren Bailey, I heard him say that it's Republicans' job to fight Democrats. All Democrats are extreme leftists. And so I'd like to hear, whenever you're saying he's attacking Republicans, I think you should focus more on who's willing to work together.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we all can really focus on is what unifies us. Right? Instead of casting, broad swaths of saying, hey, this person likes what Donald Trump says, so he must be an extremist, or this person wants to, allow for, certain types of curriculum in school. They're a hardcore woke liberal. When instead we can really focus on the things that we all have in common. Hey, I appreciate the call. Got to take another one here real quick. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, Greg. What about the Deering and Budzinski?
Yes, we will touch on the Congress races next. All right, so stay tuned. That's here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and...
With the free WMAY mobile app, 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.
So just a few moments left here. We'll overview some of the outcomes here in the congressional races locally. Nikki Budzinski seeming to get a victory, 54.7%, 45.3% for Regan Deering. Budzinski putting out a statement that she has taken that, saying that there's a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, you've got some other congressional races across the state, including some that were watched rather closely. The 17th district, Eric Sorensen is over the challenger in that race. The Democrat announcing a victory there. Keith Pacow in the 6th congressional district against Democrats Sean Casten conceding as well, saying that he's still going to be mayor of Orland Park, and some other congressional seats across the way. And then you also have Senator Tammy Duckworth getting a second term in office, beating Kathy Salvi with 60% of the vote. The Libertarian in that race also not getting to that 5% threshold to make the Libertarian Party a statewide party. They only got about 2% of the votes there. So there's going to be a lot more dust to settle in the elections, including Amendment 1.
From the Fly SPI Studios, take the easy way.